All right, so here's the deal. Kamala Harris's presidential campaign didn't just miss the mark, it completely lost touch with what voters actually wanted. And today, I am breaking down exactly why using ideas from two thinkers you might not expect in a political breakdown. One is R.D. Laing and Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Now, here's a quick intro into their concepts. R.D. Laing, in his book, The Politics of Experience, and I've got a copy right here, okay, argues that society often forces people into roles that aren't true to who they are, which leads to disconnection. And Taleb, on the other hand, uses the Greek myth of the Procrustean bed to explain how trying to force complex things like people or ideas into rigid molds creates even bigger problems. The myth of Procrustes goes as follows. Procrustes was a bandit, right? And he would make travelers, people who would spend the night, fit into an iron bed, and he would either stretch them or cut them to size. And Taleb uses this as a metaphor for how rigid expectations distort reality. With these insights from Lang's Politics of Experience and Taleb's Procrustean metaphor, let's see why Harris's campaign strategy felt disconnected, inauthentic, and overly focused on niche issues. By the end of this, you'll see why flexibility and genuine connection are everything in politics. So if you're ready, let's just dive in. So first up is Lang's concept of mystification. I believe the chapter in the book is called Mystification of Experience. Mystification is when real important issues get hidden under distractions. Lang argues that society often uses this to shift focus from what really matters. In Harris's campaign, we saw this when smaller niche issues took center stage, while core concerns like inflation, healthcare, jobs, immigration were downplayed. And these niche topics may matter to some, but they weren't what most voters were focused on from a day to day basis. And you saw that when you looked at the exit poll data after the election. Here's where Taleb's Procrustean bed metaphor hits. By structuring the campaign around certain niche topics, Harris's team created a narrow focus that didn't align with the bigger picture. They fit into a framework that spoke to specific interests, but left out what most people care about. And when your message doesn't address voters' top concerns, people are left feeling like, is this campaign even for me? Next, let's talk about authenticity, right? Another big theme from Lang's The Politics of Experience. Laing discusses how society pressures people into roles that feel artificial, creating what he calls a fragmented identity. In Harris's case, her campaign tried to make her relatable, to present her as just another average voter, and the average voter never bought that argument, never bought that characterization of her. But here's the real issue: when you push too hard to connect, and the voters weren't buying it, right? It comes off as forced, and authenticity isn't something that you can fake. Talib's Procrustean metaphor comes in here too, showing how forcing yourself into a mold can backfire. Voters can sense when something's off. Instead of feeling a real connection, people start to wonder, is this really Kamala? True authenticity isn't about trying to fit in, it's about showing up as yourself. And when that feels forced, people lose trust. Now, let's look at the core issues, the big everyday concerns like the economy, healthcare, and job security. These are priorities for almost everyone, yet the campaign seemed to let these issues slide in favor of smaller, targeted topics. Lang would call this an alienation effect, where voters feel their actual concerns are being ignored. It's like the campaign was speaking from a completely different reality than most voters. Here, Taleb's Procrustean metaphor applies too, as it suggests that sticking to a narrow focus means you're ignoring what doesn't fit neatly into that structure. By failing to address the major issues, Harris's team alienated a big part of the electorate. When voters don't see their needs reflected in a campaign, they feel unheard and disengagement follows. Now let's get into messaging. Laing critiques how society limits people's expressions through rigid norms, standards that can feel constraining. In Harris's case, her campaign messaging just felt that constrained. It was overly scripted, sticking closely to a few themes without adapting to the varied concerns of different groups and the changing landscape. As the information appeared to start coming in, it didn't feel as if they had the flexibility to change and shift. Again, we're back to the Procrustean bed, right? Taleb's Procrustean bed applies here again as a warning, right? Campaign messaging shouldn't be rigid. It needs to be adaptable and responsive. If a message feels like it's coming from a script, people can tell and they can feel like it's not meant for them. Now, let's move on to foreign policy, one of my favorites. In The Politics of Experience, Laing describes an you versus them mentality that can create division, right? Harris's position on issues like the Israel Hamas conflict may have left some communities like Arab Americans feeling alienated or overlooked. They weren't big in the exit polls, but this is to provide an example. There were others in terms of maybe the average American not feeling like she was concerned with the average worker, with the immigration policy as well, or the lack thereof. Taleb's Procrustean metaphor shows that reducing complex issues to simple terms can make people feel unrepresented. Voters want their unique experiences to be valued. They don't see this, then they may feel distanced from the campaign. Finally, let's talk about vision. Laing's concept of transcendence in the politics of experience emphasizes the need for a campaign to rise above ordinary concerns and provide a sense of inspiration and unity. But Harris's campaign often leaned into safe, predictable messaging, like sticking to pre-approved talking points or focusing on overly familiar themes. Instead of taking risks to connect with people on a deeper level, the campaign played it safe, which didn't give people a reason to feel excited. Taleb would argue that a campaign needs to present a bold vision to energize people. Playing it safe doesn't inspire, especially in a crowded race. Without a powerful unifying message, it is hard to rally voters to support wholeheartedly. So, what can we take away from this? Laing and Taleb's ideals reveal why Harris's campaign felt disconnected. Through the politics of experience, Laing shows us that authenticity, adaptability, and a real understanding of people's lives are essential. Taleb's Procrustean bed metaphor reminds us that rigid frameworks can't capture the complexity of real people or issues. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more insights like this. And let me know in the comments what you think makes a campaign resonate with voters. How should future candidates avoid these pitfalls? And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on the Relationship Theater. Peace.